Hey, what's up you guys, it's Dorothy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to go into chapter 12 of The Game by Lindsay Miller, so I hope that you guys are ready for this video. This video may contain sensitive topics and foul language. If you do not wish to continue, I suggest you click off the video now. You have been warned. And just so you know, if I keep looking this way, it's because my daughter is in her swing and I'm just making sure that she is okay. Anyways, let's get right into this chapter. Chapter 12. Their new target was a kid Leah knew only by voice. Peter Baird had been reading the announcements since they were freshmen. His ever-happy voice is staticky constant, and Leah had only ever seen him from across hallways. She had been sure he wouldn't play since he never seemed to do anything except read and announcements and go to class, but to be fair, all she ever did was go to class. It would be hard to get him. Devin had returned to his usual seat in biology, though he had dropped a note on Leah's desk before class started. He was being followed. His assassin was shorter than him, which didn't narrow the options down, and orchestra rehearsals for the spring concert were starting Wednesday. Leah drew an X over her quick scribble of Peter's class schedule. She couldn't find any times during the week when Peter would be alone. Group work time. Jim knocked on Leah's desk, dragging Leah out of her desk and pulling their seats to connect with Devin's. "You two good with this?" Devin nodded. His neighbor and default group partner, Faith, scooted her desk back. Miss Christie passed out a packet of problems. "What are we doing?" Leah asked Jim softly. "Proving Hess's law," Jim whispered. "Biochemistry, chapter 32. "Here," said Faith, handing over a full page of perfectly ordered notes that were color-coded and highlighted. Her looping cursive was beautiful and impossible to read. "I'm glad you're back at school. How are you?" "I'm fine," Leah said, on instinct, just a bit distracted. "Thank you." "No problem." Faith flipped open her packet, fingers tapping at the edge of her desk, and signed her name at the top. "Did they tell you anything about what happened? I can't believe she tripped." Faith muttered. "Devin, don't." "Sorry," she said quickly. She tripped. Leah filled out her name at the top of the worksheet. It was the chicken scratch in comparison to Faith's, and landed wrong. Faith hummed. They passed the packet around and filled out the ones they knew off the top of their heads. Jim and Faith made small talk, and Leah slipped Devin the schedule she had written down of Peter's, a little asterisk next to his after-school activities. "Do you know Peter?" Leah asked Faith. And they had exhausted their knowledge of biology and had resorted to flipping through their book for help. "Here's our next target. He arrives 15 minutes early to read announcements, gets to class 10 minutes late, and is in all regular classes plus creative writing," said Faith. "That's all I know." That was all Leah knew too, and all she had written in her journal. Miss Christie didn't have it, and Leah knew that minute had been tossed by the janitor. A year she had spent on that journal, and now it was covered in ham cubes and misprinted exams in the bottom of a dumpster. Leah flipped to the back of her school agenda and wrote Abby Asher in the neatest script she could. After that name, she added a single tick mark. At least winning meant that they were doing something good for the shelter too. Jim flipped through the book and groaned. "Which of you know how to do problem 18, they asked. "It's the only one we haven't got." "Yeah, one sec," said Faith. She dug into her backpack and pulled out a crinkled packet of papers identical to the one they were working on. "My sister had Miss Christie too. This is easier." Devin pulled the packet onto his desk and studied question 18. "That seems slightly against the rules. It's homework, not a test," said Faith. "In the real world, you can look up formulas. Look, I even alphabetized her notes and assignments." Flip to H. Jim spun their pen along the back of her knuckles and tapped a page in their book. "Don't bother, I got it." "Work smarter," Faith said, "not harder." Their group finished the packet with 20 minutes to spare. Miss Christie was busy trying to not chide Georgia for reading, and the others were quietly chatting. Devin read over Peter's schedule. "He'll be at several orchestra rehearsals, you know," Devin said. "He's always the announcer at concerts and plays. The house has him record everything the week before dress rehearsals so that he doesn't have to be there every night." "I've never gone to a concert," Jim said. "No," Devin said. "You haven't." "Shut up," Jim said. "Leah doesn't go either." "She went to the first few." Devin looked over Jim's work on question 18 and sat the packet aside. "You sat in the back and then you walked out during one of my solos and stopped coming altogether." Leah looked up. She'd gone to the concerts hoping something might happen with Devin. "You remember that?" "Of course," he said, as if it were nothing at all. That was the danger with Devin Diaz. She was never quite sure when he was being sincere or sarcastic. "Are you the only one allowed to notice people?" "No," she said, "but you've never mentioned that." "You've never really talked to me," Devin said, smiling. "Anyway, it was the height of rudeness, and I've hated you ever since. It's why I joined Assassins in the first place." Faith rolled her eyes and powered on her phone, hiding the light of the iPhone under the desk. Again, "Shucks, you're playing. School's almost over. What do I have to live for now if not revenge?" He shrugged. "Not as weird as you starting a CrossFit starting CrossFit. God, you're so much more sarcastic than I thought, Jim said. I can't believe you wasted 4 years not talking to anyone but band kids. Band and orchestra aren't the same thing, he clarified. Also, that's rich coming from the theater, kid. Why are you in theater? Faith asked, turning to give Jim an once-over. You're top of the class, diverse, perfect for law school. Theater's like the one weird spot on your college apps. Jim shrugged. I like theater. I like getting to lord my power over the props table. I like messing around with the squibs. Jim said, they don't usually call me diverse either, so that's a plus. Faith flushed. Sorry. I'm so sorry. We know, Leah said. Devin cut in. Can I borrow your pen, Jim? Oh, sure, Jim said and reached into their bag. Here. Jim held out a pen in a flat palm and pushed it up their sleeve to their elbow. Devin reached for the pen slowly, and Jim lifted their pinky and brought it down. The pen flipped out of their hand and under it. Jim turned their hand over. No pen, Devin laughed. Where did you learn magic? Faith asked. Jim had started practicing sleight of hand after a particularly intense middle school version of Robin Hood and mostly did stage work now. Prop sets in front of the house manager. Last semester's rendition of Wait Until Dark had left Jim exhausted and up to their elbows in fake blood and prop knives. Magic's not real, Jim said. I'm just impressive. If you ever went to a play, you would know that. Later, when school was over, Leah met up with Jim in the parking lot. I'm sorry about earlier, Jim said. You've seen my tricks so often. I never get tired of it, Leah said, wrapping one arm around Jim's waist. Never, except the one with the fake blood. Don't do that one again without warning me. It took ages to get the stain out. Jim unlocked the car doors and they both got in. They leaned their head against the steering wheel. I know we have things to do, but can one of the things be a nap? After we follow Peter to wherever he goes at night, Leah said, patting Jim's back. Jim groaned. Leah laughed and let her head fall against the window. Outside, a figure stood at the open trunk of a car across the lot with their face turned to Jim and Leah. Leah raised a hand to block her reflection, and Jim started the car. The figure tossed something heavy into the trunk and slammed it shut. I think we're being followed, Leah said. Jim sighed. This is fun, but I'll be glad when it's done. Let them follow. We can take them. The car, a small blue hatchback, followed them for 5 minutes before turning off into a Sonic. Leah couldn't quite make out the driver's face, and Jim kept 2 cars behind Peter, who hadn't seemed to notice he was being followed. He immediately went home, and for 2 hours went nowhere else. Jim and Leah did homework in the car, peeking down the street every few minutes to make sure Peter didn't leave. He didn't. Finally, Jim and Leah called it a night, and Leah decided to follow him in the morning. You'll be on your own, Jim said. I'm going to the gym. Leah scrunched up her nose. You never go to the gym. It's a new thing I'm trying, Jim said, blushing. May's going with me. Really? That's great, Leah said. Sometimes she had to remind herself that people led lives outside the game. She wasn't able to be one of them. After Jim dropped her off, she stood there in the entry hall alone. It was nearly 8. Dinner was a little more than slightly charred scent of Brussels sprouts. They stopped having family dinners after Mark went to college since they couldn't do family dinners without the whole family. Leah, her mom called. The music in the kitchen lowered. That you? Yeah, I was with Jim. Did you get your homework done? Her mom came around the corner, familiar tense face. What's wrong? Nothing, Leah said quickly. She had already witnessed a murder and dragged her family through that. She was fine. She needed to keep moving. Just thinking, can I eat? Of course, her mom said. Of course, her mom shot her an odd look and headed back toward the kitchen. Come on, I'll warm up the chicken. Leah's phone vibrated in her pocket and she fished it out. Devin had texted her. Peter started bird watching after New Year's, and I bet he meets up with that club. My mom can drop me off at your house and we can walk. I'll bring breakfast. You bring binoculars. And the game was on. That is the end of this chapter. I hope that you guys are enjoying this book so far, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.